Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar brought to you by Bursa Malaysia and managed by our company LifeChamp. Our webinar title today is Malaysia's second takeoff, exploring policy-driven investment opportunities. So my name is Shen Chu. I'm the moderator for this webinar. Now, Malaysia is at exciting crossroads. We are preparing for a second or even more transformative leap forward with a bazooka of new policies such as NETR, NIMP 2030, and our NSS, which is National Semiconductor Strategy, etc. So we have a lot of policies that are being considered right now. And this is a unique opportunity for us to explore how these policy-driven initiatives are shaping up our country's growth and the investment opportunity for investors. So joining me in this session is Yuan Ting Jing, who is a CFA and CQF from Optimus neighborhood. Now, before we begin, let me just do a disclaimer. Whatever shared in this session is only for educational purpose. In no way do I give any recommendation for you to buy or sell any listed securities that I mentioned here. If you decide to make any investment decision, you're solely responsible for all investment risk. Now, allow me to briefly introduce our speaker today. Ting Jin, or TJ, is a distinguished CFA charter holder and Chief Operating Officer of TED Optimus. With 10 years of experience, TJ brings a wealth of experience and a proven track record of success. So he was a former equity research analyst and a proprietary trader, and he now spearheads a team that emerged as champions in the inaugural Bursa Invest Hack 2020. So this is none other than Mr. Yuan Ting Jing. So TJ, how are you today?
Hi Shane, hi audience. Good day everyone. So today is an exciting day. So we'll definitely learn a lot and experience a lot today.
All right, I hand over the session to you, TJ.
All right. I was seeing the slide with this book. Okay. All right. So good day to everyone. My name is Ting Jing, and today I'll be walking you through the second takeoff. So everyone might be curious, what does second takeoff really means? For Malaysia, we have the first takeoff. Takeoff means that an airplane is about to take off from the land and then fly high in the sky. And for Malaysia, it's definitely us as a developing country moving towards a developed country. So we had a first takeoff. The airplane is about to fly, but then it result in not so successful outcome. And then now we are attempting for the second takeoff. And this is actually from a book called Second Takeoff by YB Liu Zhentong. He's actually the brain of DAP and also Unity government now. And he thinks a lot of policies and strategies to strategize Malaysia in the route. So he is in MITI, so he is definitely in a good position to talk about investment, foreign direct investment from foreign countries, and then also how Malaysia position himself for the next few years or next decades to come. So this sharing is about this book, and I will touch a little bit about some sectors related to this book theme that is mentioned inside. So by no means is to replace this book. It's just a summary for you guys and also to know what policies, what upcoming policies that we might be expecting in Malaysia. So this book has three segments, but then I rearranged the book segment to better fit into today's context so that everyone can think in terms of investment and less of a political reformation basis. So I handpicked those that are more related to investment and trading for Malaysia. Okay. So after going through today's session, we would have all these questions answered for you. First, what happened to the first takeoff that ended nowhere? We had a first takeoff from 1988 to 1997, and then we were about to fly high by then. Eventually, we didn't really stay in the sky, which means that we are back to the ground. And Second, why government wants to increase minimum wage? All of you know that we are increasing our minimum. We have already increased our minimum wage from 1,500 to 1,700. But then why would the government want to include foreign labor into the calculation as well? And isn't that increasing our production costs and also a big hit to the industry or the business world? There's reason behind. You will figure out later. And third, why government wants to remove diesel and eventually petrol subsidies, despite being an unpopular move. So you guys would know that just today, this week, there's petrol subsidies news coming out saying that the T10 will pay the full amount of petrol, and then the rest, the rest apart from the T10, will still be subsidized. And there are news saying that will be using IC as a medium to pay our petrol so that we can be validated whether we are in T10 or not T10 category. So this is definitely an unpopular move, but then eventually, why is the government still pushing this movement forward? And fourth, why government will not implement GST? So there are people, there are politicians or industries suggesting us to come out back to GST because we can have higher income. But then I will say that the government, especially with YB Liu Zhendong as the brain, he will definitely oppose the government to implement the GST, and you will understand it more later. And lastly, how can Malaysia escape from middle income trap? Okay, so middle income trap means that we have a very big income discrepancy. So the rich very rich, the poor is very poor, and then a lot of people are stuck at middle income, which means that our wages are very low. And how do we break through and make sure that our citizen and also Malaysian can have higher income and even higher than inflation? As you guys know that a lot of like the Milo analogy, 50 years ago, I can buy how much Milo, and then now is what price, but then my wages rarely increase, which means that my income rarely increase, barely increase. So how can we escape from that? You will find this as well in the following session. So the first economic takeoff, let's bring us back into history where we had the first economic takeoff so that you have a more clear understand what happened during this time. So from 1978 to 1987, this is the Malaysia average annual GDP growth by period. GDP actually measured the country economic health. If the GDP growth rate is high, means that during that time, Malaysia is doing very, very good. So of course, there's a lot of measurement, but GDP is the most generally accepted across all countries. So from 1978 to 1987, our GDP of 5.6. And during the first takeoff, 1988 to 1997, during this time period, our GDP growth rate was 9.3% average. Every year, 9.3, 9.3, cumulatively rolling like a snowball, bigger and bigger. And during 1998 to 2007, it's 4.3, then 4.8, and the recent one, 2018 to 2023, was 3.3. So this is a source by World Bank. And so let's bring us back to 1998 to 1997, which is 9.3% of growth rate. During that time, there's a lot of public servants, including teachers, they opt, which is the first takeoff, they opt for early retirement to go into business and also work for private companies because private companies actually pay a very high income, and also there's a lot of incentive, and business is very good throughout that time, the first takeoff. And there's even relatives who work illegally in foreign countries like Japan. They come back from Japan and then come back to Malaysia to work. From Japan, from Taiwan, when they went there in 1970s, 1980s. But then eventually during this period, they actually come back, return home, and find a decent job with a very decent pay in especially Kuala Lumpur. And at that time, even for investment, as an investor, we are seeing the market, Bursa Malaysia KLCI index, rolling up sky high. And during that time, I just heard from my parents because I was just a child during that time. So at that time, you buy any stocks, the stock is going up, shoot up, which means that if you buy a stock and then you hold it, random stock, any stock that you pick, then in a very short period, you are eventually a millionaire or becoming very rich. And during that time, there's all those IPO. When you are luckily picked for the IPO, then you will be earning a lot as well. You will have double, triple. And during that time, remiser or dealer, they who are because at that time the brokerage fees is 1%, which is a lot lower now lah. So at that time, remiser and dealer they earn a lot, and eventually a lot of them retire very rich if they didn't continue to cross the 1997 because if they actually continue to risk their capital, then after 1997, then there's a big crash. So during that time, everyone was very prosperous, everyone was very rich, and also everyone was thinking that Malaysia is definitely going towards developed countries, from a developed countries to a developed countries. So bringing back longer in time in history, during 1969, Malaysia economy was mostly a commodity base. So because that time we were just handover from British, and a lot of us are still focusing on plantation. For example, rubber plantation and palm oil plantation. So all these fortunes are very much tied to Britain because our economy are much not so independent yet. And then in 1985, something happened. There's a tariff war between US and also Japan. At that time, Japan is rising, and eventually people are saying that Japan will overtake US as the world economic power. But then US definitely want to knock down Japan. So what did US do? They actually forced Japan to appreciate their currency, which is Japanese yen, and resulting in a lot of Japanese firm, they cannot sustain. And eventually, Japanese, South Korea, Taiwanese supply chain all are messed up. And then a lot of them are searching for a lower and cheaper production sites. And eventually, Malaysia in 1986 accepted all those foreign direct investment because there's a push and there's a pull. Push from Japanese, a lot of companies are coming out, and Malaysia accepted all this FDI, which is foreign direct investment, because in Malaysia or in Southeast Asia, we have a lot of cheaper production base, and all these Japanese, South Korea, and Taiwanese countries firm they actually invested in Malaysia. A lot of big names in Penang, in KL, a lot of new foreign company coming in and build their base and also eventually bring up Malaysia business ecosystem. And then we had our first takeoff. But then eventually in 1997, what happened? We actually had the Asian financial crisis. So everyone remember George Soros, he attacked Thailand and Thailand baht was attacked, and then eventually George Soros also attacked Malaysia ringgit. And at that time, we pegged our currency to 3.8 to USD. And so that was a big crisis for Asian countries, including Malaysia. Actually, at that time, there's already a big crisis, but then George Soros see the opportunity and then further hit all the countries in Southeast Asia. Okay, so coming into 1998, we have a political crisis. There's for Indonesia, because the whole Southeast Asia, including Thailand, including Malaysia and Indonesia, are all attacked. Our Indonesia dictator President Suharto, he actually being the empire for, and then for Malaysia, our then Finance Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim was also caught and also prosecuted. And then there's a lot of political crisis. And then from then on, a very big thing happened in 2001, which is China joining the World Trade Organization and becoming a very cheap manufacturing base for the whole world. A lot of investment flowed into China, and then from then until now, Malaysia is stuck in a low wage model because there's no transformation and wages are low, quality growth based on unskilled labor because we are very much relying on the unskilled foreign labor model previously. So that was the first economic takeoff history. And what is happening today? We have poly crisis. We have multiple type of crisis happening. First, COVID-19. We are still not out of pandemic yet, as we are seeing of cases of mutation of Omicron and other kind of virus. And all these are still happening in Malaysia, in Singapore, in the whole region. And it's getting still serious from time to time. And then we have a climate crisis. We are seeing our sea level higher, and then the weather is very extreme now. And now it's pretty hot. And then sudden there's a very big flood in Malaysia, and then we are also seeing a lot of earthquake in other countries happening. So there's a climate crisis with the sea level higher and global warming. Next is the supply chain disruption. We are seeing that US is imposing tariff, and then the entire supply chain is messed up. And there's even some countries undergoing war, like for example, Ukraine, Russia, and also Gaza, Israel, and a lot of and previously even Pakistan and India having some conflict, and we are seeing a lot of great power rivalries and causing the supply chain to be really, really risky. Because if you are only relying on one base, if all your manufacturing is in China and then in one country, then if there's a disruption, then you can't have your goods ready and the supply chain will be disrupted. Supply chain means that the entire flow of goods, because to be able to manufacture something, you will need multiple raw material from all countries, and you might be importing certain raw material from one country and another country. Then only you can have the goods manufactured ready to be sold to another country. So that's the entire supply chain. So Malaysia actually is in a very strong position during COVID-19 because Malaysia 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 is in pandemic and also in MCO, which is movement control operation. We are shutting off our factory, and because Malaysia shut off factory, General Motor in US cannot actually proceed with their production because there's parts that are coming from Malaysia that can no longer be exported to US. So that's why the entire supply chain is linked to each other. One country downfall may lead to another country downfall. We are in a very strong domino effect nowadays. And inflation, definitely, we are seeing rise in fuel price. We are seeing rise in gold price and a lot of inflation. We are seeing rise in our food. So all these are a crisis as well. So mixing up all this, we are seeing, you may see that, wow, the world is so calm or so bad now. But there's actually an opportunity in disguise lah. We have a chance to rise in our economic order if we position our Malaysia well in this context. So the basis of second economic takeoff is a one in a generation global shift. If we really can't take off, then probably is another 60 to 100 years for another attempt to take off, because currently in the world, we are in a very crucial moment now. And the second takeoff can happen on the basis that we are changing from just in time to just in case. Just in time means that everyone is focusing. I can't see. Okay. Just in time means that everyone is focusing on the lowest price and they want to get the maximum value with the lowest price. So everyone is having their factory at that time, putting them all the eggs in the same basket. For example, in China, because it's the manufacturing hub, they want the lowest price, and then with the goods produced can be exported to other countries to sell for the higher profit. But now we are moving to a just in case. Just in case means that the world tries to de-risk. They don't want to put all the egg in the same basket because there's a lot of risk. The poly crisis risk that I mentioned earlier. The COVID-19, their supply chain all disrupted, and there's war. If your country is in war, then you don't have a backup country to produce your good, then it will be a turmoil for your company. So that's why company now they are investing in a lot of region. So they want to separate their eggs in several baskets. For example, foreign direct investment into Malaysia, so that Malaysia can actually have a lot of investment. So companies are keeping Chinese operations out, and also they are going to home shoring, near shoring, friend-shoring, and South Asia. So South Asia, previously before the tariff, we are seeing a lot of investment coming in from China, from Japan, from Europe countries coming into Malaysia. And yeah, so that's the basis of second economic takeoff, just in case. So what we will see if the second takeoff really happens, we'll move out from the low wages. People are no longer low income. And then our citizen, our Malaysian, will become a high income nations. We will become rich and will become a developed countries to be, even though it's not a few years thing, we don't actually keep our hope too high. But then if we position ourselves well in this dynamic economy, because there's a lot of crisis happening, we play our cards right and position Malaysia strategically, we can move towards second takeoff. And there's a lot of policy, including new industrial master plan 2030, placing ourselves with a high value jobs, building strong linkage to the domestic industry. So all the policy, including ESG team, including producing high technology, complex products, all this is what we should position ourselves. And we should not compete with Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, and or the Philippines. If we compete with them, then we will forever in the median income trap, because these countries have more than 100 million population and they are young. They have a big market to sustain their existing operation or business. But then Malaysia is different. Malaysia population is definitely lower than these countries. We are on the map 30 million, 30 plus million. And to compare with them, to compete with a low cost is definitely not the way to go. We should compete in high technology and not low cost. So this is the advice from the book. Malaysia needs to be strategic and position itself in 3 middles. So today's has a big topic about these 3 middles. First middle is middle in the global supply chain. We need to be accept a lot of foreign direct investment and then be at the center of global supply chain, even in Southeast Asia. Second is middle power and middle ground in geopolitical terms. We cannot take sides. We cannot side US. We cannot side China. We need to be in the middle, because if we side, then we are losing the other half. So that's why we need to pick as a middle power. And third is an aspiring middle class society. We are eventually building a high income nation. To be a high income nation, your middle class, your middle income society need to be high. The base need to be big. And we cannot have a very large discrepancy rich are very rich, poor is very poor. We need to have a strong base of middle class society. So this is the three middle, and this is the juice of today's topic. Okay, so now let's move on to the second pointer, second take off, Malaysia as the middle. So first, indispensable middle position. So we all know that Singapore is doing very well. Singapore has their own goods and bads as well, but Singapore is, in terms of economy, in terms of technology, is a lot higher than Malaysia. However, Malaysia has an economy that not as sophisticated, means that Singapore is more sophisticated technology-wise. They are doing a lot high-tech business and also high-tech job. But then to compare Singapore and Malaysia, we are actually very near to Singapore. It's just a bridge away. And for Malaysia, our costs are much lower. We are seeing Johor accepting a lot of investment, and Johor forming in Johor, so that not just Singaporean companies are coming into Johor, but then other countries. For example, the first one was, I remember, it's China company. They come into Johor to set up their base in the industrial park. So all this because Malaysia can be positioned as the middle position among Southeast Asia, and you can have your headquarter in Singapore, and then you can have your manufacturing base in Johor. This is just like the Shenzhen and Hong Kong model lah. Previously, I also got talk about what is happening, why are we following Hong Kong and Shenzhen model, because Hong Kong is, at that time, was very, very sophisticated, and Shenzhen is just a fisherman village. So we follow the model and want to build up Johor as another economic engine for Malaysia. And logistic strength, we are similar. We are our port, seaport, our logistic are all equivalent strength, and we are both next to Malacca Straits. And we have a large English educated workforce as well, and common law framework. All these are very much similar with Singapore. However, there's more than 1 million Malaysians working in Singapore, and all these, they are actually ready to come back to Malaysia if Malaysia can offer at least a 2/3 pay to Singapore. And this is just another cycle. If we do it well, we position it well, and Malaysians who are working in Singapore coming back to Malaysia is just like the first takeoff, where Japanese Japanese illegal worker, when Malaysian went to Japan to work, went to Taiwan to work, went to South Korea to work, they will actually come back to Malaysia. And then we actually have our talent pool back into Malaysia, and Malaysia can rise again with smart and very talented Malaysian. Actually, we don't have a talent problem, we have a pay problem. That's what addressed by YB Liu Zhendong, which is, if we can increase the pay, then there's definitely no talent problem. And second is middle power aspirant, which is US is still the boss of the world, which is the highest GDP, and regarded as the first country in the world, as the best country. But then now the ranking is challenged by China and Russia. And we are seeing a lot of extreme countries, extreme position of between US and China, and there's a lot of trade war happening, technology war happening, and hopefully not a physical war happening, because there are sounds that if the war break out in between India and Pakistan, or if there's a war break out in Taiwan, it's definitely a very bad thing happen to our world lah. So that's why Malaysia should not take sides. Malaysia should be friendly to both sides. We cannot side China, we cannot side US. We need to be at the middle. And because these few days we are having ASEAN summit, ASEAN conference, and there's a lot of roadblock as well. So we are leading ASEAN and we need to position ourselves well. We should not compete, we should collaborate with all the ASEAN countries. And the third middle, which is middle class. So in 2001, when China joined the WTO, the middle class citizen in China was less than 100 million. And now in 2022, because the book was around that time, the book was out last year, and his statistic was up until 2022. There was middle class citizen more than 400 million. And Malaysia need to aim for higher and technology-based AI, automation, advanced technology stuff. And we cannot see ourselves to compete with Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, or Philippines. Those countries have a lot of big population, and Malaysia, rather to import foreign labor or trying to compete with a low cost, is not the model that we should go with. Instead, Malaysia should focus on technology and build a supply chain integration with all the Southeast Asia countries and not compete. We should be collaborating. So with this in mind, we are able to build a middle class society. Later on, you will see the linkage. Now you may be still blur a bit. So in Malaysia, our wage, D1 means the lowest 10%, 1,482. This was in 2023. And D5, 2,600. D7 is 4,000 wage, which means that 70% of Malaysian in 2023 has wage lower than 4,000, while the top 30% is more than 4,000. So what does the 4,000 really means? 4,000 means that is the threshold for Malaysia to pay income tax. We need to always file income tax, but then to pay income tax, the threshold is actually more than 4,000 ringgit monthly wages. So you can see that Malaysia has 70% of our population not paying our tax. Only 30% of the population is paying tax. So it's definitely a middle income trap because we are stuck in low wage for so many years. So that's actually the crucial problem that's happening in Malaysia. If people are earning very low wages and people are not paying tax, the tax base is very low, then the country has no money to further invest or further incentivize which industry. So it's a cycle. If we are able to increase our wage, we are increase our salary, with a higher salary, people are paying more taxes, then the country has more money, then it's a good cycle. Now this one is a bad cycle. We need to move towards a good cycle, or you call that a virtuous cycle. Okay, so low pay in the glance. So we are seeing low medium wage. We are low medium based on this diagram, low medium wage, and underpaid, underemployed, well-educated workers. Many people come out from university. We have a lot of graduate, but then they are not getting the pay that they want, and they are capable. Everyone of us are capable, but then we are stuck at the medium income wage. We need to go up from it. Otherwise, the job market will be stagnant as well. So that's why underpaid and underemployed is happening with the low pay is happening. And large contingent of gig workers, we are seeing a lot of Grab drivers, we are seeing a lot of Lala Move. And definitely, this is definitely a very big crisis. If we are stuck at these gig workers, what is happening to gig workers? They are able to earn 4,000, 5,000 per month, but then they are working very, very hard. They are maybe driving 10 to 18 hours per day, which is a longer hours than office work, just to earn a living with 4,000, 5,000 higher income. But then, as you guys know, Tesla has come out with their autonomous car. So what will happen if even the driver has no work? It's definitely a very big crisis as well. So we need to move up from the low pay model. And also rise of economic insecurity. Like for example, Grab drivers, food delivery drivers, they are working a very long time, 14 hours per day. So this the individual employed in the formal sector by wage bracket. From here, you can see that below percentage of total worker in each category, less than 2,000. So you can see the top is very small, the bottom is very big, which means that most people are stuck in a low income level. While because this is more than 15,000, for sure is the highest, for sure is bigger at the base. Okay, so each 10,000, you can see that from bottom, each 10,000 above, this is 2,000, then at 1,000, at 1,000, then from here at 1,000 is like a pyramid. The bottom is very big, the top is very small. So to sustain the low wage model, we are actually importing a lot of huge number of unskilled workers. For example, from Bangladesh, from Indonesia, while our low-end workers from Malaysia can only move to Singapore to work. We don't have a decent job. We don't have a good paid job in Malaysia. So low level productivity because we are relying a lot on foreign worker. There's a brain drain. All our talent are moving outside, and there's an inadequate social protection and income inequality and also job dissatisfaction. So all these are actually happening. So we need to move from a pyramid shape to a diamond shape. So pyramid shape means that the lowest is around the biggest base, less than 4,000. Because 4,000 is the threshold for us to pay income tax. So if less than 4,000 now is still the big base, and then the middle income, which is 4,000 to 10,000, is the middle part, and then more than 10,000 per month is only 9.1%. So this is the current model, and we need to move towards the right-hand side, which is the diamond model, diamond shape model. Diamond shape model means that around 60% of the middle income. Then with this model, with less low income and also less high income, so the biggest base is actually the middle. With this happening, why is it so beneficial to Malaysia? First, middle income, we are with 4,000 to 10,000 salary range or with an income range, then you can see people paying more, paying tax. And then with this range, it's actually 2/3 of Singapore pay because a lot of Malaysians that work in Singapore, they are in low-end industry. For example, labor job, for example, construction worker and all those. So they may be only earning like 6,000, 8,000 ringgit lah, equivalent in ringgit amount. So if they can earn the 2/3 in Malaysia, then they are very happy to come back because Singapore definitely the living cost is also very high, and they save up a lot of their money just to afford better life, better future. Okay, so with a bigger base in the middle, that's our goal. That's our objective. That's the middle income model that we really, really want. So how to turn from pyramid to the diamond model? There's only these solutions addressed in the book. First, automation, AI, automation, innovation, technology, and everything to go digitalization. So whatever you need a lot of foreign labor worker, we should not have that model. We should be we should have a model that one skilled local worker can replace 5 unskilled foreign labor. So the skilled worker are able to operate machines, are able to monitor automation, monitor AI to further increase uh, our country productivity. Reindustrialization facilitates supply chain organization and to upgrade our economy in a big way. And also green transition, which is the ESG model, that's the direction that we need to move, especially the first one. So let's dive into the first one. Why is it so important? From here, you can see that we have underpaid, underemployed, and well-educated workers, adult that complete SPM. Now it's upper secondary education is 63%, and with a university degree or diploma is 25%. We have a lot of graduates. It's not that our graduates quality is not good, and this is the popular belief. People say that graduates quality not good or they demand too high a salary, so that's why they don't have job. But the real issue is our economy doesn't create enough jobs. We need to have more business. We need to have a better business environment with a stronger supply chain to have more business happening in Malaysia. Then we can only afford more to have more jobs and then to employ with a higher salary. So this is the real issue that's happening in Malaysia. So why are we stuck in the low pay model for 25 years since the first takeoff? Because government liberalized the process of hiring foreign workers. We are taking up too much. This is just the legal foreign worker. How about the illegal foreign labor, unregistered foreign worker that's coming in from Indonesia, Bangladesh, and Nepal? We are relying too much on foreign labor because if you are relying on them, that means you are competing at the low cost model and makes up 1/5 of the total employment, which is very high, and heavy dependence on unskilled foreign labor. I'm sure there will be a question asking, then what will happen to Indonesia, Bangladesh, and Nepal worker? I haven't seen the question from the chat box, but then the answer will be we should not compete. We should not import foreign unskilled labor, but then we should actually, when we are wealthy, we should invest in these Bangladesh and Nepal countries. We should have our factory, our business expanded to all these countries so that both our countries and their countries will prosper at the same time. So that's why at first I asked why government wants to increase minimum wage, including for foreign labor. So it's a carrot and stick problem. The carrot, which means is luring you to move forward, is a handhold the industry to automate. The government is actually pushing all the industry to automate, to go through AI. So if one could turn a task that requires 10 unskilled foreign workers into one skilled position, then the Malaysian skilled position will have double or triple the original salary. So that's why we can increase the wage up. If we stick means that it's like a rotan beating you from behind. So we are disincentivize the use of foreign worker by making them more expensive to hire, especially for large firms. So now we are having tier basis. If you are a big firm and you are hiring above a certain threshold, above 10,000 foreign labor, then your levy cost will be very high. So that's why government is using a stick, forcing companies not to rely on too much unskilled foreign labor. Malaysia has no talent problem. Malaysia has a pay problem. So this is very important. For example, in Singapore, Malaysia residing in Singapore, there's 1.13 million. And Malaysia, they are moving between Singapore and Malaysia. There are 300,000 every day. And rental in Singapore has risen 30%. So we should not see Singapore as a competitor. We should be a collaborator. And we are looking to increase our jobs to 2/3 of Singapore wages so that there are no shortage of high-skilled Malaysians who are now migrant workers in Singapore. With a higher skilled Malaysian in Malaysia, of course, the basis is the pay need to be higher. So that's why there's the carrot and stick model implemented by the government. How to end low pay, upgrade wage and jobs, creation of high skilled jobs. So this is definitely a virtuous cycle if everything goes up in a good way. Higher job, more talent, economy better, salary higher. So it's a cycle. So this need to be pushed by the government. If we stick on the low pay, then we are going only downwards. So by having the state will have to take on an active entrepreneurial role, means that even the state government will need to bring in more business, bring in more investment to build up more business to make it more available in Malaysia. So why government will not implement GST? So if we have a low tax revenue, 70% of us are not paying tax. And if we implement GST, then there's a full blanket tax, means that all of us will need to pay tax, regardless you are poor, regardless you are rich. So the poor will become even poorer. And definitely there will be anger within Malaysian with the GST coming back. And even my income is so low, why am I still taxed? So the right solution would be raising the wages, raising the household income, so that more people have higher income and they can pay a higher tax. With this model, is the right way to go instead of putting a GST just to increase the contribution to the government income. So that's why as YB Liu Zhendong is the strategist, this is the direction they are moving, the lower tax revenue, raise wage, higher tax. GST is definitely not the way to go. On foreign direct investment, we need to think about what sort of investment industry we wish to attract into Malaysia. We do not guarantee anything to lead to decent paying job, but then at least all these foreign investment company need to utilize our talent. So there's a condition from this FDI. So they need to train out our talent so that our talent are capable, and eventually they even may start a business around that ecosystem. So all these are very important with more foreign direct investment coming in. It's not just number, it's actually a way to push Malaysia forward into a developed countries. And the third part, Malaysia policies and economic impact. So everyone is talking about Madani economy, but then we rarely know what is Madani means or what's the benchmark for Madani. So from the board, we have a few KPI. We need by 2033, which is the KPI for the current government. We want to be the top 30 globally by GDP. And we want to be the top 12 globally in the Global Competitive Index. Fiscal deficit of 3% or lower, labor share income at 45% of GDP, all this, including female labor force. Participant reached 60%. So this is the KPI as an aspiration of Madani economy. So they have two teams. One is sustainable economic growth and one is inclusive development. So you are hearing our Prime Minister saying we need to lift the floor and lift the ceiling. Ceiling means that our high income bracket, we need to hit higher. The floor means our minimum wages so that all the population in Malaysia are able to earn a decent income. So raise floor, raise the ceiling. So and with the 7 aspiration is the Madani economy aspiration model. Of course, there's a lot of national investment aspiration, but I won't go in detail into that. There are missions coming up from them and why it matters. Now I'll move into the more interesting part, which is the investment related stuff. Key industry and team beneficiaries mentioned in the book and the focus of Malaysia economic policies. First one is definitely Malaysia semiconductor industry. From here, this is actually from the edge. So you can see that the high value chain, we come from integrated circuit design. A lot of companies, the US big names, Samsung, all these are in this category are integrated circuit design. And then after they design it, they will need to do wafer fabrication, or you can call it manufacture the semiconductor or the chips. After you manufacture the chips, you need to packaging and testing to make sure the chips is not spoiled, can resist heat, can resist big pressure. All this from the packaging and testing. And then with packaging and testing, there's a lot of machine needed. So this is the ATE, automated testing equipment needed for packaging and testing. And lastly is the EMS, which is we are putting chips together with wood, metal to form some stuff to form your iPhone. So this is the entire value chain of semiconductor industry. But now Malaysia has a problem. We are very much in packaging testing, ATE and equipment like stocks, Inari, all those G-Tronic or all the familiar technology companies that you can name are mostly in this two category. And Malaysia aspiration, and that's what we are pushing, is more companies in the front, because mostly company that have very huge profit margin are either in the front or in the end. In the end means you are selling your iPhone. So because Apple doesn't manufacture the iPhone, they outsource it, but then the design phase and also the sales and marketing phase is by Apple themselves. So that's why they are earning the most juicy part and leaving out the lower profit margin part. So that's why you are seeing more policy like the semiconductor policy coming up. We want to move upwards to the supply chain. So if you want to have companies that are in this supply chain, then precision engineering is definitely a very strong team play. So what so this precision for now we have less company here lah. We are mostly here, but then precision engineering is one of the team play for our semiconductor industry, and then you can see some names of precision engineering. So this called a team play means that one team called precision engineering. Then what stocks is in this team? You can see, for example, Notion, FP Tech. Why are they in precision engineering team? All these are listed out here. The next focus will be electric vehicles as a catalyst for the next generation of mobility. Okay, so Malaysia actually has a lot of capability. We even have the necessary natural resources to manufacture the battery, which is the most crucial and most expensive part of the electric vehicle. And Malaysia can develop the industries along the EV battery supply chain. Malaysia has very strong automotive supply chain. We also have very strong semiconductor supply chain. We are manufacturing chips for automobile, for Tesla in US, for General Motor in US. But then previously there's a big problem. These two industry doesn't talk to each other. Means that car manufacturing their car themselves, semiconductor chips for car doesn't talk to each other. So that's why there's a lot of integration and talks. Government want to push them towards a collaboration direction. And eventually, electric vehicle prices are now coming down and adding a lot more competition to the global electric vehicle market. That's why Malaysia have the capability. So that's why we definitely are not reducing our petrol and diesel subsidies. Well, sorry, we are removing the subsidies for diesel, and eventually they will remove diesel and also the RON 95, RON 97 of the petrol, because they want to push us to buy more EV lah, because EV has an entire ecosystem, and then with EV definitely is going green. There's a better environment friendly model, and at the same time, the most important thing is we don't, because a lot of our petrol or our diesel are illegally smuggled to Thailand. And even I go to Singapore driver said every 2 days I drive to Johor to pump RON 97 because foreigner cannot pump 95 in Malaysia. But what happened to the illegal pumping of uh, smuggling of RON 95? That's happening in Thailand border, that's happening in Johor, Singapore border. So we can only stop this from happening if we remove the subsidies and only authorized Malaysian can pump the petrol and diesel. They can only enjoy subsidies because every year Malaysia is spending around 30 the 30% on the subsidies on this petrol, and we need to cut it off, replace it with green subsidies. And also, steel industry is also a very strong industry in Malaysia because EV for sure is integrated with steel industry. And NIMP 2030, that's four out of the four mission, steel is also definitely one of it. We are moving towards net zero emission. That's why local steel industry is also still an important industry in Malaysia. And what are the steel companies in Malaysia? For example, this we have listed out for you lah, so you can look through. And next is green transition. We have the net energy transition roadmap. In this regard is the NIMP 2030. So we are pushing towards ESG. Companies in investing in ESG companies definitely will benefit in terms of better profit and also better environment consequences. So we have already signed the Paris Agreement, and then we are looking forward to move toward net zero emission by 2050. And this is actually a very big economy. Imagine the solar panel. There's even companies that just opened in 2022 and they are doing very big, 10 of million, some even get listed. That's why all the green technology industry is very important and is within the policy from Malaysia government. Electricity generation, like hydro generation, hydrogen energy, all these are linked to each other. Clean energy equipment, renewable fuel production, green finance. So bank will also incentivize your company if you are going green. So if you catch my talk last year in Busan as well about Sarawak, then I talk a lot about green hydrogen. You guys can search on YouTube lah, because LiveCham also still hosting the video. And so we are pivoting from fuel subsidies to green subsidies. We need to remove fuel subsidies because one of it, fossil fuel are bad for the climate. And then we need to solve the poor public transport problem. If public transport is not solved, then people, if we just we just very rough to increase the fuel subsidies is actually very bad to our country. There's a statistic saying that whenever fuel increase, there's more accident and death en route. Why is that happening? Can you think of the linkage? When the fuel price increase, there's more death en route. The reason is simple, because when fuel price increase, people cannot afford car, so they downgrade themselves to ride motorcycle. And with more motorcycle on the road, accident rate will rise lah. So that's why there's more accident. So it's we can't just remove the fuel subsidies. We need to go by stages and even have some plan for it lah. And also, our generous fuel subsidies actually cost 40% of our total fuel subsidy bill, which is a lot on our budget. And the price gap from Malaysia fuels and also Thailand, and the difference between the price of petrol and diesel between Malaysia and Thailand and Singapore actually cause a lot of diesel smuggling, which means that they just need to pump full tank petrol and drive to Thailand and sell there. So that's what happening lah. Every day we are seeing all this thing happening, and that eats into our income, our Malaysian money. So we need to move from fuel subsidies to green subsidies. There will be one-time subsidies for purchase of EVs, phase removal of diesel subsidies, and only followed by petrol subsidies much later. And also subsidies for electrified bus. So what team? This one, EV team, EV stocks has a few lah. But then I didn't list the team here. Okay, and also ESG practices. Everyone is talking about ESG, but then it's still very new to among retail investor. So for ESG, if you don't know how to see ESG, you can straight away go to Bursa Malaysia website. There's a ESG FTSE for good team play. There's a you can just search for FTSE FTSE for good GOOD. Then you will see the list of all Malaysian stocks with a ESG grading band. So you can have the 4-star, means the top 25% ESG practice, good practice firm in Malaysia listed company. So if you pick the highest band, the top 25%, definitely your stocks are the better one, because in terms of green, in terms of renewable, they are doing good lah. So we also list the team play out in our website lah. Okay, so from land capital to tech capital, we should not focus too much on land and resource base. Instead, we should focus more on tech base or capital base, so that we can bring better healthcare, bring better jobs for Malaysians, stop even for GLCs. They should stop acting merely as a private players trying to extract maximum profit. They should actually develop the right industries. So this is for GLCs based on the book. Need to position from land, because our GLC has a lot of land. For example, SIMDABI, for example, Felda, all those are very land-based. But then we should move towards tech-based capital, which is improving the technology, improving the productivity to move forward. And for urbanization, there's a big plan for KL as well. So now we are seeing that most of us work in the middle of the city, and we are living outside the donut. So that's why we have so much traffic jam. So the good policy model is actually we have more houses at the middle of this place, and also affordable, so that people travel less. They can have closer workplace from their home. So this is actually a REIT model. So if even next time you may see retail REITs, which means that the REITs is just like a fund. And after they raise the fund, they will buy property, for example, pavilion REITs, and then they will pay back a very high dividend back to investor. So next time you even will see retail REITs. For example, people are raising money with REITs and then buy residential REITs and then rent it out to people working at the middle of the city. So this is another type of REIT model, which is suggested by YB lah. Public transport, no amount of road construction. So regardless we build how much road, the number of cars and population will definitely still spike up. So that's why we need to solve the public transport issues. We need to have more first and last mile connectivity. Now we have MRT, but then even with MRT, you need to drive to the MRT station to take MRT, which is very inconvenient. So the better model is we need to have the first, which from your house to the MRT, for the house to the bus station, there's something catered in between. And the last mile, which is from MRT to your workplace. So all these need to be solved. This is a slide that made by myself. So we used to have Proton and then we become very car-centric. With a car-centric model, public transport is definitely not developed. So that's why our public transport system has a lot more room of improvement. So instead of car-centric, we should move towards public transport-centric. Instead of petrol subsidies-centric, we should move towards green subsidies-centric. And also, Johor, the land is 3 times the southern Johor is 3 times the land of Singapore. If you see the classification, you can really tell that it's not just merely the development focus, but then Singapore companies or even other country company can have their headquarters in Singapore and their manufacturing base in southern Johor. Even healthcare, even tourism, there are certain part of it catered for Asia. I've talked about it in very detail in previous Johor template lah. So this is a Johor template, which is much connected. Why Johor should rise up? Because we cannot just merely rely on one economic engine. We cannot just merely rely on KL to be the sole economic engine. We need Johor to rise up. We need Penang to rise up. We need Sarawak to rise up. All these are the focus. And eventually the whole country can prosper together. And Johor has a very good model because it's very near to Singapore. And that's why there's the Johor Singapore Economic Zone, Special Economic Zone, developed. And there are more companies investing in Johor to tap into the supply chain. Another thing is flood mitigation because of global warming and rainfall. There's very serious flood happening in KL in 2021 to January 2022 in all this over the 5 decades. 2022 we have floods in Kelantan and Terengganu. 2023 we have floods in Johor, the worst flood in 17 years. Even for Sarawak, we also have flood in Bintulu recently. And climate change will continue to affect us in multitude of ways. So that's why flood mitigation is also a very important team play for us to move forward. We need to have flood mitigation for KL, for Selangor, for Johor, to ensure that we are not affected by the high rainfall level. And before I open to Q&A, I still have a few more slides. Middle power, we should not take sides. We may benefit from US-China trade war, but Malaysia has to be cautious not to take sides. So that's why you are not hearing any of our government officers saying that they pro-China or they pro-US, because we need to be in the middle. That's actually very important because if in this new world order, there's a multipolar and two extreme of power rising. So next time, US will not be the only best country, the largest economic power country. China and US will come hand in hand. And if a war breaks out in East Asia or South China Sea, then it will be a very bad disaster for Malaysia because Malaysia is just next to South China Sea. So that's why we cannot endorse US nor China. We need to stay at the middle. So this why middle power is so important for Malaysia to position ourselves. Of course, US tariff hike on China has some stocks that benefit from this team play. We are seeing stocks from this team play increasing a lot. So second takeoff success measurement. We measure by GDP growth. We measure by foreign direct investment figure. We want to increase the medium wage of Malaysia. And we want to ensure that not just KL is prosper. We want to disaggregate the social economic outcome. We want Johor, we want Sarawak, we want Penang, we want KL to prosper together. There's multiple economic engine in Malaysia. And of course, impact of our activities on the climate, ESG, green energy. All these are the focus of Malaysia government. Okay, with now I'll open up for Q&A.
Thanks, Charlie, for doing this very comprehensive session with us, sharing snippets of YB Liu's ideas on the Malaysia second takeoff. So if you have any question to ask our speaker today, please write your question in the Q&A box, yeah? Not the chat box, all right? Q&A box. Are there
I
any
think
questions?
I think all the questions are in the chat.
All right. So TJ, the first question is, can you comment a little bit about the oil and gas industry? Are there any positive news coming out from this second takeoff?
Okay, as per the book, there's not much focus on oil and gas as per the second takeoff book. But then from my perspective, definitely if you want to research on oil and gas industry, Petronas CapEx, Petronas capital expenditure is definitely a very important research tool for you because whatever Petronas put their money in, then that part of the oil and gas industry will prosper lah. So from here you can see that we are actually moving towards Petronas and all the earnings from the petrol will not go to the central government, but then Sarawak will also get a higher cut from with the with the revenue from the oil and gas industry. So from here, I would say that it's actually beneficial for Sarawak companies because Sarawak Sarawak is actually not a state, it's actually a federated state. They actually have a higher status than other state. So with stronger autonomy, with all the oil and gas income, then Sarawak is definitely very important, and that's why they will fly as well lah. As per oil and gas, I I'm not a I'm not too I'm not so savvy in oil and gas industry, but then if you want to research on this industry, then definitely the Petronas capital expenditure is a very important document to be read every year lah. Oil and gas will definitely stay for the coming years, but then it will still be a revenue source for Malaysian because it's still a very important revenue source. Just that oil and gas industry per se will be good. Will not be the best one. Will not be the best industry, but then it will still be there for the years to come.
All right, thanks, TJ. So the carbon capture is one of the focus areas for oil and gas capital expenditure. So will this be popular?
Yeah, we call it CCUS, carbon capture, utilization, and storage. Because from oil and gas or from any factory, you are emitting carbon. We don't want it to be emitted to the the ozone layer because it will cause even higher global warming. So that's why CCUS is a industry that you pointed out very clearly, which is within the green energy direction. So this was mentioned in the book as well. So CCUS, you need to have the technology to capture the carbon to avoid it from being released to the ozone. And then you even utilize the carbon that emit from the carbon dioxide. And then you even store the bad component. So this entire industry is particularly very important in Sarawak, in Peninsula. So definitely you are pointing out a very strong industry to focus on, CCUS.
Right. Thanks, TJ. Now, the next question is by Suhaidi. So, if the Taiwan and China issue escalated, so the tension flare up, so what would be the immediate impact on Malaysia?
Okay, so if Taiwan and China issue escalated because US will never we also won't see any war zone in US. So for sure, US will back Taiwan by providing military weapon or all those. So if it's that region, then I would say for Malaysia, we still need to stay neutral lah. We need to stay in the middle power place. As long, of course, it's something that we do not want to happen, all this geopolitical issue. And we are seeing bits by bits of war in all area of the world. So if Taiwan escalated, because there's still a lot of important industry in Taiwan, for example, TSMC, semiconductor industry, although some of them have already shifted to US, but then they are still in they are still in Taiwan, and then there's a lot of technology-based collaboration between Taiwan and also Malaysia companies as well. So that, of course, the supply chain will also get affected. And if this get affected, then there will be outflow of investment from Taiwan into Malaysia. So with this happening, I would say it's not a good thing to say lah, which might be there will be investment inflow for Malaysia if the war happened in that region or the issue escalated, which is not something we want to see also lah. But then how the world turns, we are just because in Malay there's a proverb say, gajah gajah bergaduh, peluduk mati di tengah-tengah, which means that we as a small country, we cannot we cannot stand among the elephant. If we stand in the war zone, then we will get crushed by the big giant. So that's what the peribahasa I roughly is that lah. I from my memory. And if we stand in one side, we will get crushed. We can only stand outside of the war zone lah. So anyone can correct my peribahasa. I also long time didn't use that peribahasa. Gajah gajah bergaduh, peleduk mati di tengah-tengah. Something like that. That's why as Malaysian, we need to stay neutral. We need to stay at the middle power, which we would not side any either China or US. We will just stand at the middle lah.
Yeah, I think one of your last slide indicate that the projection by YB Liu is that if there's any war that break out in East Asia or in South China Sea, that war could lead to World War III, right? That's what is written here.
Yes.
So this could be the worst outcome now. Okay, the worst outcome of obviously we hope that this doesn't happen. So we hope that China will address Taiwan issue amicably, okay, or diplomatically, without leading to any kind of arms conflict. All right. The next question is by Patrick. He's asking for all the plans that the government announced, right? Do you know what is the timeline that they are looking at? Like let's say we talk about the likes of NETR or NIMP or national or NSS, right? National Semiconductor Strategy, right? Do you know what is the timeline that we're looking at?
So they have the policy and plan listed out. For example, in the NP 2030, we have the plan listed out until 2030. And then we'll move back to the Madani model, which is the KPI for the government itself, which is this by 2033, the aspiration, what we want to hit by then. We not just the economical success of Malaysia, we also want equality among labor between male and female, and also our human development index. We want to rank higher in terms of ESG, in terms of social wise, and also corruption. We want to be ranked best 25, which means that we want to have less rashwa or less corruption. So all these are the KPI under the Madani economy aspiration. And of course, NETR, National Energy Transmission Roadmap, all these are policy and roadmap. So it will divert the direction of Malaysia. All these are there so that we go green, we go AI advancement, technology advancement, we go towards the direction. So all these are there to drive the direction of business owner. For example, any business, we should talk about ESG, we should talk about technology. So all these are based on the policy. I'm not sure whether I answer your question, but then that would be my take.
All right, thank you so much, TJ, for sharing with us this topic, which is the idea by YB Liu on the Malaysia's second takeoff. So that's all the time we have for Q&A today. So maybe allow me to share my screen. Just give me a minute. All right, so thank you so much, TJ, for sharing with us this idea. So, ladies and gentlemen, you just listened to the Chief Operating Officer of TED Optimus in